Now you're at this extraordinary situation, whereas I say, I've no doubt that the Inland Revenue have got your photographs all around the wall. You know? Yeah. But one thing that interests me is, how do you cope with all this sort of hero worship, first of all? You know, the kids who come in there, see you, and no doubt storm the dressing rooms and all this sort of nonsense. What do you think about that?
Well, I've made my own back, and you have to live with it. You know, it gets a bit dangerous when you're on tour and there's like 1,000 kids outside the dressing room, and you have to sort of get out of the building somewhere or other. But if people come up to the house and are polite and nice, you know, you have to live with this. You do have to sign autographs. You do have to say hello to people. It doesn't really matter what, you know. I've always made the point that no matter what I'm doing, if I'm a pop singer or I'm a singer, etc., so I'm in show business, but it doesn't really make me any apart from anybody else. But this is something that you do have to fight with. You know, you think, God, you know, you become terribly paranoid, but you have to fight it. And
that's how you keep saying, is it?
No, well, you see, things like, I don't like to bring them up because I'm always going on about them, but joining a football club where people like Watford, I'm a member of Watford Football Club, and they don't treat me any different. They don't ask me for free records, they don't do this and that, but they just treat me as a normal human being, which I in fact am. And so it sort of brings you down to earth again, because, you know, you can lose touch. You know, America's a very sort of bad place for that. You know, you can get carried away over there because it's also sort of not real over there sometimes.
Yeah. Can I finally ask you? You're going to stay with us, but I mean, just for this sort
Thank you, Michael.
This set, I always think when I say that, I finally ask you, there's a kind of ejector seat where, you know,
Don't put that past me, Michael.
But I mean, what about the future? I mean, one of do you feel or do you think that you're going to end up a kind of sort of a middle-aged ex-rock star or what?
God forbid, no. I really enjoy what I'm doing now because I've got a band who I'm Elton John, and my band are sort of considered the backup band, but it's never been the case. They've never been a backup band as far as I'm concerned. And the band that I've got now, I really love, and I love working with them. And I hopefully got 2 or 3 years left where I can have a good time. As long as you're having a good time, then you're okay. And I am still having a good time. But for God's sake, I don't want to be doing this when I'm 36 or 37 because I think it's really pathetic. There's much more to do in life than just going around the stages of the world and singing Rocket Man or Crocodile Rock. I think that would really be pathetic.
Well, you're going to sing for us now, play for us now, without the aid of your...
It's also going to be pathetic for us.
Without the aid of your band, what is it in fact you're going to play for us?
It's called We All Fall in Love Sometimes, which is the song off our Captain Fantastic album, and it's a song about Bernie Taupin, who writes my lyrics, and myself, and the sort of trials and tribulations that we went through.
Elton John?
Thank you.
There's a piano.
Wise men say it looks like rain today. It crackled on the speakers and trickled down the sleepy subway trains. The heavy eyes could hardly hold us, aching legs that often told us it's all worth it. We all fall in love sometimes. The full moon's bright, starlight filled the evening. We wrote it and I played it. Something happened. It's so strange, this feeling. Naive notions that were childish, simple tunes that tried to hide it. But when it comes, we all fall in love sometimes. Did we, didn't we, should we, couldn't we? I'm not sure, 'cause sometimes we're so blind, struggling through the day, when even your best friend says, don't you find we all fall in love sometimes? With a smile, wise men say it looks like rain today. It crackled on the speakers and trickled down the sleepy subway trains. The heavy eyes could hardly hold us, aching legs that often told us it's so worth it. We all fall in love sometimes. Oh, 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 oh. We all fall in love sometimes.
A time when most actors wait by the phone hoping it might ring, and more often than not being disappointed. My next guest is literally swamped with offers. He can pick and choose, and so he does. But even then, over the past few years, he's made an average of 3 movies each year. At present, 2 new movies are on show: The Romantic Englishwoman and The Man Who Would Be King. The star of these movies is my next guest. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Caine. Right, my old son.
Right then.
Right then. The thing, actually, it occurs to me about the two of you is that, you know, as I said in the introduction, you're this sort of superstar bracket. But the one thing you've both got in common is that, and I know this for a fact, is that you're both sort of, you've got roots, you know where you are. Because, I mean, your publicity recently, and I know it happens to be true, it always shows you sort of in the garden with gumboots or cooking roast beef. And you're a kind of mixture between Percy Throne and Fanny Craddock at present.
I'm somewhere between it. Something that occurred to me when I saw Elton, and you were talking about stars and English stars, is two of the requisites, and it seems to be you have to have fair hair and be short-sighted, which is what we both have. And I spend a lot of time in the garden, basically because I kept eating sort of food that didn't taste like you remember everyone said it didn't taste like it was when you were a boy. And I thought, yeah, well, that's because I've been drinking and tobacco and all that, smoked and got older. And the one thing I never thought of course, is it was filled with chemicals. It wasn't very fresh. And so I started my own little garden, and suddenly all those new potatoes and everything tasted exactly like they were when I was a boy.
Yeah.
Which, of course, wasn't very long ago.
No, of course not. But is that, I mean, that's really your sheet anchor, isn't it, that home you've got and
my home,
family?
Home and my family is a tremendous anchor for me. Is my whole life. That's what I live for.
Yes,
actually.
yes. But do you carry over from, I mean, you came from the East End of London, from a sort of council flat. Yeah. Now you've got this lovely home by the Thames. Do you carry over any kind of obsessions from your background?
Oh, yes, many. We were bombed out. I lived in Camberwell, and we were bombed out, and they put us in a prefab. Now, prefabs were marvellous because they had a bathroom and electric light and everything, which I'd never seen. That's true. I saw electric light in 1947 for the first time. We always lived in a place with gas, the old gas mantles, you know?
Yeah.
And I remember going round and changing the accumulator for the radio for my father. You know, we should get the accumulator. It's a very young audience. I feel like Damien Evans sitting there.
Be careful.
No,
You're talking the woman I love, Michael.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. We're the woman I love, in actually.
Right.
Lovely. No, but one of my obsessions is, having lived in a prefab for so many years, is large rooms. I like large rooms. I don't have very large rooms because I've been waiting for 4 years to get permission to extend the home that I live in.
Oh, you've been having some trouble, haven't you, with the bureaucrats?
Yeah, I do have trouble with the bureaucrats. That is one of my talents, yes.
Yeah. We all have trouble with the bureaucrats, yeah.
Yeah, I remember when they finally passed my my extension, one of the councillors said it was superb, and it is, as a matter of fact. And another one said, well, that may be so, but I think it's a bit gimmicky. And they asked him why. He said, he's got central heating.
He lived in a cave, did he?
I don't know. Well, it was one of those fellows who believed to keep the window open at night.
That's right. Yeah.
That's what my father did. My father always made me keep the window open at night. It was quite tough and everything.
What happened?
I got bronchitis. I live in rooms now, they're about 100. You could grow rubber in the room.
Do you ever go back to the East End where you were born?
Oh, actually, I wasn't born in the actual East End. I was born south of the river, and I go back on my own to look around, but I don't know any of the people there anymore, except my own relations, because when I went off to be an actor, they all said, oh, forget him, you know? And so for 10 years I was an unknown actor, and there's nothing worse than being an unknown actor, because being an actor depends entirely on being known. And so what happened was that I swore when I was an unknown actor that anybody who didn't get in touch with me, I wouldn't get in touch with when I was famous. So I wound up not getting in touch with anybody.
Sound like a very close family.
My family is very closely knit, yes, yeah. Very much so. It is a very close family. Everybody's I have one great friend from the old days, actually, from one guy who I met when I was 14, who is still my friend today. As a matter of fact, he's at home now waiting with the rest of my family for me to come home, because they're holding dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you don't feel
Not in their hands. No.
You don't feel any nostalgia at all, though, when you go back into those streets where you came from?
No, I remember once I went back, and I was walking around the Elephant and Castle where I come from, and everything's pulled down. It's very strange, because I don't know what's going on, but everywhere I've ever lived has been pulled down. I'll have to wear a brass plaque in my hat or something. I went back, and I was walking around the Elephant and Castle where they're building this great new Elephant and Castle, and I saw an elderly man wandering around, and it was Charlie Chaplin, and he was doing exactly the same thing as me, because he was born about 4 streets away from me.
Really?
Yeah, and he was wandering around, but I never spoke to him. And then I suddenly saw in this brand new complex there was a brand new pub, and it was called the Charlie Chaplin. And I went in there, it was full of Irishmen.
And they all got little hats on and canes.
No, only the sign. Only the sign. They all said, what do you have? What do you have? And I said, well, it's the Charlie Chaplin.
You're very happy and settled at present, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're at a very... Actually, looking at your career, it's the cuttings come into 3 separate categories. There's like the early days and the early broken marriage and the struggle. Then there's that lunatic period, the 60s, when you're the gossip columnist delight and a bird every week. And then there's the settled period now. It's
yes, that's
sort of
right.
like a 3-act play, isn't it?
Yes. I think this last act will last longest.
You do?
Yeah, I'm happiest in this. I think I was always described as a kind of bachelor. I always feel that I was an unmarried man, really. I always wanted... If you have a very... I don't know why I got a laugh, actually. I'll say it on the next interview. No, I've always been very, very taken up with family and entities. And I remember when I was a boy, I always read books about great families in houses, and there was always the patriarchal figure I know you're not supposed to say that. Women's lib year is over, isn't it, something?
Yeah,
so it's not matriarchal. And there was always a kind of, the godfather kind of figure, which is, I mean, outside of any criminal activities, I always saw myself as and have kind of become, with everyone's problems around, you know.
You rule the roost?
No, I don't see myself as ruling the roost. I'm the only one that anyone can come to for any help if they get into any problems, because I'm the only one with any money in my family.
Something else again you share with Elton, you see. You sort of, you dole it out, do you?
But I was watching Elton, and neither of us feel that there's any, is not a question of anyone sponging or anything like that. No. It's a kind of a realistic sharing with people you care for, which I think is terribly important.
Yes.
Otherwise, the money doesn't mean anything. I mean, what are you going to buy? You know, you really can't buy. I mean, look at the way I'm dressed. You think I do have a penny?
That's a disguise.
Yeah. Yes, it's kind of local colouring.
That's right. But in spite of what you said, of course, about the ladies and this sort of thing, one assumes that the kind of lady figure you like, and indeed the one you married, is one who will be the wife and mother figure for you and look after the home and this sort of thing.
Yes.
Yeah, Shakira, of course, she just done her first acting job, hasn't she, with you?
Yeah, but she acted in the picture The Man Who Would Be King that I did, but that was purely accidental because another actress fell out and they were looking for an Indian princess. And my wife is not a princess, but she's an Indian, and she kind of looks like Rudyard Kipling's idea of a princess, which is kind of beautiful and things like that. I suddenly think of princesses, yeah. No, well, she looks like a princess anyway, and so we said, you do it, and it took me about 3 days to talk her into it, but she doesn't really want to be an actress or a star or anything.
But are you glad about that? Would you resist it?
Well, I suppose I would slightly, in as much as I don't see any point to it, because if she earns another load of money, sticks me in a whole other tax bracket, and she's going to be going to work for nothing. And so there's no point in her leaving where we are, and in actual fact my work is all done based on whether I can take the wife and baby with me. And so any picture that is in a place like with the jungle or something where it would be unhealthy for my baby, I don't do it, no matter what the part's like.
Really?
Yeah, oh yeah, we keep together as a family the whole time. It's, as I said, it's the most important thing to me in my life, really, truthfully.
Because in fact you very much enjoyed doing it, didn't you?
Yeah, I worked with a marvellous guy, Sean Connery, who's an old mate of mine and a really smashing guy, and it was a very happy experience working with him, and Christopher Plummer, who's another friend of mine. I did Hamlet with him many years ago, BBC. I played Horatio to his Hamlet. And John Huston, who to my mind is one of the great legendary directors in the world, and it turned out to be a rather smashing experience to do, and unlike a lot of films that are like that, it's a rather smashing experience to see. So I'm rather proud of it.
Well, in fact, I've not seen the movie, I must admit, but for the best possible reason, because I was not warned off it, but I was told by a friend who'd seen it to take your kids to see it. So yeah. I deliberately didn't go myself, because I want to take the family to see it. Well, that's the point, is you can take children to see it, but it is not a children's movie, in as much, I think that you see in it, it has all different levels. It's from Kipling's short story. If you're a 12-year-old boy, it's a great adventure story. Whatever intelligence you have, that's as intelligent as it is. Yes. Which, of course, is a good excuse for me, because if you don't like it, it means you're not very bright. What was it like working with Huston? Oh, marvellous. He's a really, he's a great character. He gives very, he's a storyteller. He told me a story once of his uncle. This is a sort of story, very doom-laden man. Huston never laughs, and he's very old and grizzled. He looks like Ernest Hemingway. He always talks like that. And he said, Michael, he said, my uncle was dying. He said, and he was laying in bed in Connecticut. And he had 2 or 3 days or 2 or 3 weeks to live. He said, and a friend of his wife's, a woman, came all the way from New York to Connecticut in the snow, 2.5 hours to see him. And his wife went upstairs and said, Mrs. Smith has arrived to see you. He says, I won't see her. He said, that woman has bored me for 35 years, and I refuse to see that damn woman on my last 2 or 3 days on Earth. She said, but you've got to see her, you've got to see her. She's come all this way from New York.
So he said, well, I'll tell you what you do. He said, I'll pretend to be dead. He said, I'll pretend to be dead, and then you go downstairs and tell her that you came up to say she was here and I'd passed on. So he did. So he lay there like that, dead, and the woman came out and kissed him and said some prayers and burst into tears and left. And then Houston told this story to me, and he said, the moral of this story, Michael, is, he said, that even if you're dying, pretend to be dead rather than be bored.
That's a nice moral.
That's Houston. That's absolutely Houston. Yeah.
Let's talk to the two of you now, because you are the two superstars in this country who have not gone into tax exile abroad. And I wondered if I could ask you both the reason why.
Who, you want to start? You've been on the longest.
All right. There's a simple reason. I just like living in England, and I think you can only earn so much money, and you can only buy so much, as Michael was saying. And you have to find out where your roots are and where your happiness is and where you feel best at home. I mean, I have a house in Los Angeles which I bought because I was spending so much money at the Beverly Hills Hotel. I thought it would be cheaper to buy a house. So I bought a house there, but I live in England. I'm an English resident, and I like living in England, and I'm happy there, that's all there is to it as far as I'm concerned.
What about you, Michael?
It's the same with me. It's a purely emotional thing. You have to work out the difference between what you would save in taxes living abroad, and that amounts, for me, emotionally, to how much my happiness is worth. And of course, my happiness isn't worth, is worth much more than that. Also, you wind up with kind of little practical things. I remember when you get really very homesick, when you're away for a long time, I remember going in Los Angeles, going all the way down to Hollywood Boulevard, which cost me like a return fare from Beverly Hills, something like £4, to buy the Sunday newspapers, which cost me, the Sunday newspapers, the 7 or 5 that you can get, cost me £7. And so you wind up spending £4 in cab fare to pay £7 for Sunday newspapers, and you're supposed to be out there saving money. And at the same time, you're miserable, you know.
What are you miserable for, though?
Rain. In Los Angeles, it's always... I tell you what it is. Los Angeles is a marvelous place, and I love to go there, and I love being there. I have a great many very good friends there. But what happens is that you get this kind of guilt. Like after the winter's been, when kind of nothing happened, the spring comes and nothing happens, it's just 85 every day, you know, and then the summer comes and it's 95 every day, and then the winter comes and it's 75. And life is kind of like that. In England, by the time the first daffodil comes out, you really feel as though you deserved it, because you lived all through the... You know what I mean? You go, oh, and you say... People say, isn't God good? You say, isn't God good? What have I been through since last October to get a daffodil? You know? And so in the end, what it is I like the change, the seasons. You even look forward to the winter in a kind of masochistic way.
Yeah.
You know?
I suppose it's football with you, is it, Elton? I mean, that's what you miss most of all when you're in America.
And also relations and friends.
Yeah, that's the same as me.
I just miss the sane. England to me is sane, you know. I love America. I like to go to America, as Michael said, and I like to go for 6 months. But then I got 6 weeks or whatever it is, a period of time. But you always know that you're going to leave and go back to England, and that's great. Also, there's a point as far as career goes. If you're always seen out at the Sunset Boulevard in the shopping market, and you said, everyone can go in there and say, oh, I saw Elton John down the market today. It's sort of a mystique living in England. Americans are fascinated with English people, and I think it's a good thing to live in England from a career standpoint of view, because they like people that come from England, and they ask you questions like, do you have refrigerators in England? I swear to God that's true. You know? Oh, you have refrigerators? Far out. You know, yeah.
To think, though, about these extraordinary amounts of money that both of you earn. I mean, do you think that you're worth it?
Yeah, I think you're worth whatever you can get. We're paid for very short periods of our lives. A working career of a creative person is... I'm not going to tell you a load of stories about what... I think we're worth what we can not get, what we can keep. Which is a very different amount.
Yeah.
A very different amount.
Right.
But I do think that if you... What people pay us for is the gamble we took. I remember when I left school, everybody went into a regular job and they knew they were going to get a damn good living all their lives. Whereas I could have been penniless my entire life. And I was paid on a gamble. Mm. And the people who don't gamble don't expect to win big prizes, do they?
True enough.
You see what I mean?
I do. Elton,
Right.
what about you?
I think people have got the wrong idea of me. I think they've only got to shake my hand and they think I'm going to give them a Rolls-Royce Corniche. I really don't... I have no idea how much money I've actually got. I literally know, because I'm not really interested, you know? I'm enjoying what I do. I'm very, very grateful for being paid the amount of money, the vast amount of money that I'm paid for what I do. But, you know, as I say, I don't force people. I don't sort of stand with a whip and force people to go in record shops and buy my records. I mean, I could release a record tomorrow, and I probably will do, that will just plummet down the charts, you know? In fact, I've got a single out now that isn't doing too well. So... you know, it's a gamble, as Michael said, but that's the excitement of it all. I'm not, oh God, what's the word? I'm not sorry about the money I've got, because...
You don't feel ashamed of it?
No, not at all.
No.
I've worked for like 11 or 12 years to get where I am. But, you know, I think the thing with money is to enjoy it and not to hoard it and not to be miserable. So many people are so miserable with success and they sit on their money and they never spend anything. You go to the pub and the moths fly out the pocket, you know. I really think that tomorrow it could all end. I could be knocked over by a London transport bus. And I've had a bloody good time with what I've had. And that's the whole point of it.
That is the point, yes?
The other end of the scale is what I'm thinking of as far as the gamble, is you think of the unknown actor who tried to make it and didn't. All his family, every time he meets his family, they say to him, there are you bum, I told you to get a regular job. You see what happens, you see, I told you, you couldn't talk properly, you didn't do it before I get, well, until you get something. This is what happens, because I've been both those things, you see. I've been the unsuccessful actor as well, when people say, well, what, you should have gone in the market with your father. Billingsgate Market, my father worked in. Have you seen what happened to Billingsgate Market? Frozen fish, they don't bring it in anymore. Closing the thing down. Who'd have thought fish would go off the menu?
Well, listen, we're going to take you right back, both of you, to your roots, because, in fact, as I mentioned, Elton, you started off as a pub pianist.
Yeah.
We've got a pub piano over there. We've also got a couple of pints. There's only two up there. That's for you and me, Michael.
Yeah, but the player can't drink.
No, the player
we
can't.
pour it over him.
That's right, if it's no good.
Because there's no window there.
That's true. There's no window. Let's go across and have a sing-song, shall we? Right.
Hey, shot one. That one down there.
My word.
My word.
Oh, it's lovely.
I feel like Winifred Atwell with this. It's my other piano, all right?
Come and make eyes at me down at the old bush.
Very good. There you are. Side of Elton John you haven't seen before.
And one you'll probably never see again.
We got a request.
What? A request? Maybe... What? Yeah, maybe it's because I'm a Londoner, yeah. Who wrote that? It was an actor who wrote that.
George Gershwin.
Laurie Gershwin lived upstairs.
Gershwin. Right, you all know it, don't you? Yes, right. So
Right.
let's hear you this time, okay?
Yeah, come on,
Mr.
come on.
Piano Player.
All right, sorry about this. A sweet to give you. Here we go.
Where
that's it for this week. I'd like to thank... It's been smashing. I've really enjoyed it. I'd like to thank you, Elton John, and you, Mike Caine. Before we go, of course, I can't let Mike Caine get away with that, and we'd like to close traditionally with the national anthem, which is On Ilclimor Bar Tat. Do you know the...
Know it?
He wrote it. He wrote it.
We used to sing it in a club outing.
Oh, the club outing.
Yeah, when we went up north.